Welcome to another CHRO Conversation, hosted by the Center for Executive Succession at the Darla Moore School of Business. I'm your host, Anthony Nyberg, and today we are speaking with Caroline Mandeville, Chief Human Resource Officer of Nuveen. In this role, Caroline is responsible for organizational design, culture, and change initiatives for an organization with nearly $1 trillion under management. Caroline, thank you very much for joining us today. So you were sharing with us a number of challenges going on and interesting opportunities that are occurring in your organization as your organization goes on about achieving its strategic objectives going forward. Can you tell us some of the challenges that you face on a daily basis?
So the asset management business's biggest challenge these days is the speed of change. So AI, artificial intelligence, and the way that's used, the amount of data and information that's available, or even just keeping up with the right systems and access to data, and being able to take that and translate that into how do we conduct business, what kind of markets are we going to go into, what kind of talent do we need to acquire and train and develop. That's the biggest challenge because it's happening so rapidly that change management, the organizational structure, the design of how we do business and the people that we need is just rapidly changing from month to month.
So in terms of artificial intelligence and this amount of new data that's coming in, and you talked about the challenges associated with that, what does that mean from an HR perspective? We don't often think of HR as purely data-driven and needing to consider those issues.
Yeah, so I think that the biggest impact on HR is if we're going into new markets because there's opportunity for business there, or that's where the growth is for the firm and the company, we have to think about how do we set up shop? How do we have an office? What's the talent within that market? How much does it cost to acquire the talent? Is there enough financial services employees that are going to be available? What are the employment laws? What are the expectations for benefits? So practically everything that we touch within HR to be able to set up in those businesses in those markets has to be thought through end to end.
So when you're thinking about talent now to bring into your HR group, data analytics, I presume, is an essential now?
It's absolutely essential. I think all of us have to have some form of analytical capability to do our jobs, including, if you're an HR business partner, you are helping make decisions, and our leaders want to make decisions with data. So it's their job to go back and collect from the different sources, pull it together to have a story that helps leaders make informed decisions.
And your history is really interesting because you've been in a lot of different HR roles, you've been in a lot of different industries. Can you share with us a little bit about what is different about HR in a financial services industry?
HR in a financial services industry means that you're focused on talent more than anything else because we don't produce cars, we don't produce products. We have people who make really impactful decisions. They have to have good judgment skills. So it's our role to help not only attract, hire, but develop that talent, ensure that we have the right people in the right place, who have the right capabilities. That's a way for us to be able to impact both the expenses for the company as well as the profits of the company.
And a lot of companies now talk about how talent is really what's important for them. And we would hear this across a lot of things, but you really mean it. Right? I mean, from the financial services perspective and from your company in particular. So what does that look like at Nuveen?
We take a very disciplined approach to our talent assessments, our talent reviews, our succession planning, as well as what we call vulnerability analysis. So we have people who are responsible for managing large sums of money, and the returns of that money obviously go to the retirement participants, and we take that seriously. So if there were to be something to happen to a money manager, what are the risks to that fund, to that portfolio, to the market and the market's perception on our ability to continue to give those returns, the ratings that we get, the financial standings that we have. So we go through annually a full review of all of our people. We do use a 9-block for talent assessment. We do have succession plans for all of our leadership roles. We have development plans that go along with that. And the vulnerability analysis looks at different components of the asset managers and what are those risks that we need to mitigate. We have a mitigation playbook that we implement once we've gone through that assessment to ensure that either we're planning for turnover or departures, or we're ensuring that people stay, or if there's knowledge transfer or co-relationship roles that need to occur, that we're putting that in place.
So that's really interesting, because that sounds like you really have a risk management strategy for your talent in a way that maybe many organizations don't have.
That is true. And I will say that risk is something that we manage very closely as a firm. And our risk organization loves that we're heavily involved in looking at all the people scenarios and what could potentially happen.
One of the things that TIA is known for is a tremendous organizational culture. And Nuveen also has its own really interesting culture, and I think a really successful one, obviously. Can you share with us some of the keys to driving a successful culture?
So Nuveen has 13 different businesses that make up the company. So 13 different affiliates, and those affiliates are in different locations, different geographies, different countries. The one thing that we all have in common is a set of values. We have 6 core values that we expect everyone to follow and behave within those values. But we also expect that the cultures might be slightly different given the nature of the business. For instance, we have agriculture business, we have a timber business, we have real estate business. What works within those environments, the type of individuals that you hire with either their credentials, their backgrounds are very diverse. So we don't push for the same culture for every business or every location. We push for the same values.
So how do you, when you're in the midst of doing acquisitions and bringing companies together, how do you push out those values to make sure that those core values really are in sync across all of your groups?
We do it in several ways. So first, we have a process for our performance management, and in that we include a values goal that every employee receives, so that's foundational. We also have a reward and recognition system that has the values as the parameters for why you would recognize people's performance. And then we have an annual survey, employee survey, that we assess the performance of the firm, of the organization, of the leaders as it relates to those values. And that helps us drive if we need to do something differently, if we need to do more of a certain approach or task to make sure that the values are clear. It helps leaders make decisions.
And another place that you're really well known for being cutting edge, I think, is in your diversity and inclusion initiatives and the things you do along those lines to really create an inclusive culture. Can you share with us some of the ways that you manage that?
Well, we have a few different approaches for ensuring that our leaders and our employees have an appreciation for diversity, and certainly to be inclusive in what we do and how we work together. To start, we have employee resource groups. We have a very, very strong women's resource group, which tends to be a global approach, because in the United States you focus on a lot of aspects of diversity and inclusion, but outside of the United States it's predominantly looking at the female population. So there's a big group of interest in the women's ERG group. And so we have events throughout the year. For our ERGs, we have sponsorships, we have guest speakers, we'll have lunch and learns. In addition to the ERGs, we have training that we're very proud of. We work with an improv group out of Chicago, and we have been working over the past year plus, taking all of our leaders through this experience of how to appreciate differences through improv. So making it fun, but also helping them get comfortable with sometimes things that are uncomfortable. And this year we're taking that globally.
And do people then recognize when you do something like that? Because that sounds like a really interesting and creative way to go about creating more inclusivity and understanding and acceptance of people. Do your leaders, or how do you also convey that that's important for business?
Well, I think it's in how we talk and how our leaders represent how important it is. So it starts with the CEO, and he will regularly talk about what he expects and how he believes people should behave and how he values the diversity of our population. and why it matters for the business too. It's always nice to have a tie for people to understand, well, what does it do for us? Clearly, a lot of the statistics will show that if you have a diverse population, if you have individuals who are working on a project that can relate to the end customer, you're going to have a better outcome. So our leaders have examples where they regularly show this is not only good for us as a firm and a organization to come together, but it's good for our business too.
Your group really is doing it, I think, better than most. So congratulations on that. And thank you very much for joining us today. We sincerely appreciate having you down there.
Thank you, my pleasure.
You just listened to another CHRO Conversation. Today, Caroline Mandeville of Nuveen shared her views regarding how talent drives business strategy. As you also heard, the challenges regarding diversity and inclusion require great focus and attention. On behalf of all of us who are associated with the Masters of Human Resource program and the Center for Executive Succession here at the University of South Carolina, thank you for joining us.